me and my brother went to Moldova a few times, and every time we're there, we get in trouble with the crazy Moldovan guys. And we don't start trouble. These guys are just crazy. And I say, you know what? Part of you has to respect their absolute nationalism. Like, where are you from? America. Oh, America. You come Moldova, yeah? Like, they want to fight you now. Like, you're like, whoa, what the fuck? But it's how they are. But it's like,
I heard about that.
Moldovans are crazy.
It's dangerous.
It's very dangerous. We've been there 4 times, and twice we got dropped. So that's a 50% attack rate. And we still maybe go back again, but yeah, it's really
a 50% fight rate when it comes here to Moldova. I wonder if the problem is Moldova or if it's Andrew Tate, because that has definitely not been my experience, the experience of my friends, the experience of my clients who've come here to magical and remarkably peaceful Moldova. I'm here in Chisinau. There are lots of friendly Moldovans. Well, I guess they weren't the type that was picking or getting into a fight with Andrew Tate, or Andrew Tate was picking on. So then you see a bit of a different reaction. And this is a perception that many people have about countries like Moldova. It doesn't necessarily have to be Moldova. I would say it's for a lot of what I dub New Europe. I have another video about that up above in the card down below in the description. It's basically the countries east of Germany and west of Russia. So countries like Poland, Czechia, the 3 Baltic states, Romania, here in Moldova, can also be Ukraine. And for people who've never been in these parts, it is very easy to be seduced by hyperbolic stories like that one with Andrew Tate, where he claims it's so dangerous in Moldova. But that has not been what I see on the ground. And since this is a channel where I relate a lot more factually based experiences from being the guy on the ground, the insiders are known by my clients. I've actually been here in this region for more or less over 10 years at this point, and I'm a former lawyer. So definitely I'm a person who knows what the rules and regulations are and how to not fall on the wrong side of them, something that Andrew Tate has obviously failed pretty dramatically in neighboring Romania. So let's go into it and look at some actual facts and stats and see how safe it is here in New Europe, especially when compared to Old Europe or Western Europe. Hi, Submergent.
SAR Experience.
Okay, so let's look at a few maps indicating the crime rates across Europe. So we're going to start with robberies. The robbery rate, which is reported robberies per 100,000 inhabitants, and then you see that the hotspots in Europe are in the red, going onto the very dark red, almost black color, and that's when you get over 300. So it is reported robberies. You have to take into account maybe in some countries they just don't report crime as much, but seeing as we're trying to get a comparison across an entire continent, it doesn't actually show in this map Ukraine or Moldova. Obviously I'm sitting here in Moldova, but if we look across Europe, you see the trend around, say, Barcelona. It's going to be the highest, almost the highest. Actually, Paris is the highest. So there you go, right in the heart of Western Europe. It's at 611, Barcelona 398. And that definitely correlates with my experience in Barcelona. It was like pickpocket central. Whenever I went there, Las Ramblas in the center, also very high. Or Brussels, where I actually used to live. Saint-Denis, which is also basically Paris, West Midlands, London. So, and a few Belgian cities that are economically depressed, like Liège and Charleroi. Definitely, if you look across the continent, we can see that the darker colors are to the west, in Western Europe, kind of in there into Germany, Northern Italy, the UK, around Dublin in Ireland, and then up into Sweden. And then when you come across to countries like Poland, the 3 Baltic states, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, even Austria, Romania, down through the Balkans, it is a lot lighter in color. So there you go. So reported robberies are definitely lower. See, so petty crime, not as big an issue. And I can definitely say that correlates with my personal experience in this region. Even at night walking around, I feel definitely safer in big cities like Warsaw, or in, the capital of Latvia, Riga, or here in Chisinau, Ukraine back in the day. Definitely feels a lot less intimidating. You don't see so many robberies take place or kind of wanton violence as I have seen, having lived for many years also in countries like France and Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, and so forth, in Germany as well. Never lived in the United Kingdom, so I can't really speak to that. Just on my trips there, though, and similar to Ireland in the sense that there's a lot of crime also associated with after-hours drinking and alcohol, which might surprise you that that's not super high here, since people drink a lot of alcohol. But yes, definitely my perception of feeling secure walking through a city center, this correlates. I would feel safer in Central Europe, heading into Eastern Europe, or as I refer to it as New Europe, versus countries like Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and definitely Barcelona, which is, as I said, was like pickpocket central when I went there last time. Burglary rates. So this is something I've also endured because I lived in Brussels at the time when they had the highest rate per capita. I see now, according to the stats, they're no longer number one. But yeah, burglaries were a huge issue when I lived in Brussels. I did have one burglary take place, but they did not steal anything. It was a very strange one. They broke in, but then the kind of shard of the door that was made out of wood that they had broken through, they actually left that on the table and didn't disturb anything. So very weird. I think it was a case of mistaken identity. My neighbor, who I only met afterwards briefly, was working in an industry that was a bit sketchy, and at one point he disappeared. But anyways, I digress. So the robbery rates, let's look at them. So Leipzig in Germany, Halle, Magdeburg, Vienna, Chemnitz. So mainly German cities with the highest burglary rates in Europe. And we can see as we go across the map here that it's very high in Spain, France, parts of Germany. Seems to be a little bit localized in Germany. Southern Germany doesn't seem as bad. Switzerland, Sweden, very high. We'll see in the United Kingdom, especially in the part that's England, very high. Well, we've no stats for Italy, so we can't say Austria very high. Parts of Czechia a bit high. Parts of Poland less, but still there and still present around the center where Warsaw is, and into Romania a little bit around Bucharest. But there you see, as you go further east across the continent, again, burglary rates in general go down. That's a little bit harder for me to speak to because I haven't heard of so many burglary rates in countries like Ukraine, Poland, the Baltics. It was a massive issue when I lived in Brussels, but in Ireland it didn't seem to be as big an issue either. You can see that in the colors a little bit in Ireland, but otherwise it's kind of similar to here. Next one, let's look at motorized vehicle thefts, so basically car robberies. Unfortunately, we don't have stats for France on this map, but again, you can see southern Italy, very, very extreme. Up Sweden, it's a little bit all over the place here. Again, United Kingdom, just nearly all of the United Kingdom has an issue with car theft. There we see the biggest cities listed on the right for car theft. They all seem to be Italian or Swiss, basically the top 10 places. Spain, not actually that high. A little bit about Barcelona, kind of reflects the overall issue with this kind of crime. Turkey also there crime. But again, you see Romania very low, Poland also low, the Baltic states low, into Finland, Czechia, Hungary all low, so Bulgaria low. So there you go. Again, repeating that, reflecting the trend that I see in general, that the crime, this kind of more petty crime, is a lot lower. You could also argue that because the economic development level here in this region is lower, then a lot of the unsavory types who want to go robbing stuff, well, they have more lucrative victims, shall we say, if they actually move to parts of Western Europe. And that is possibly one of the factors influencing this. But at the end of the day, if you're living here in Moldova or somewhere else like Poland or Czechia, then this is less of an issue. So again, reflecting the general feeling of more security here in the region. Now, as a little bit of a counter-argument to what I've been saying, let's look at homicide rates. So this is not petty crime. It obviously reflects safety to a certain extent. And actually, we see the opposite trend, more or less. We see very high homicide rates relative to the rest of Europe here. Again, we don't have stats for Ukraine and Moldova, but we do have them for the Baltic states. Very, very high. You see that Latvia is actually the highest, surprising there, at 3.32 for 100,000 inhabitants. That's a homicide rate, so the murder rate, basically, shorthand for that. Also, Lithuania pretty high, parts of Romania very high, into Serbia, I see also reasonably high, in parts of Bulgaria. Turkey also very high there, even though I don't deal with that country in particular. And you see it's lower if you go across to UK, Ireland, homicide rate a lot lower. Throughout France, a little bit higher in parts of Portugal and Spain. Surprisingly, Sweden and Finland also super high. So that is a counter argument or a counter statistic to the general feeling of greater security in this region. Now, it is a lot lower in terms of the murder rate compared to the United States. So like even Latvia is about half the US level, I think. And same with Russia. Russia would also be more or less double that stat that we see for Latvia. So even at the top end of the homicide rate here in this region, it's still considerably safer or a lot lower in terms of murders than the United States or Russia as its neighbor. But we don't have the stats for Ukraine or for Moldova, but considering where the line is there on the color shade for Romania, well, and all the places around it, we could probably have a guesstimate that it's also going to be something reasonably similar. So that is something to be aware of, that the murder rate is higher in this region. Now, will that affect you? Murders are pretty rare. I guess we can deduct that when there is crime, it tends to be a little bit more serious here. So that is a pretty good indication of what it feels like. As I was saying, feels a lot safer. What I've experienced myself or with clients or with friends, there is occasional stories of robberies. We did have them in Odessa a few years ago, one particular gang, and there was violence involved that was targeting tourists. But this is a phenomenon that is a lot less of an issue than it is in most of old Europe or Western Europe. I have to say that personally, just with the alcohol issue and violence, Ireland, the UK is probably the place where I got harassed the most, ironically, and definitely several factors higher than I've ever been in Ukraine or Moldova or Poland or the Baltics or Czechia or Hungary, any of these places. I've been in this region for most of the last decade, so a lot more than Western Europe. And obviously I lived in the States for a little bit, but I was living in Western Europe the rest of the time. So I can say that definitely I get just a lot less aggro in this region, even though people do also drink a good bit of alcohol. I think it's actually a little bit less, especially in Ukraine, than before. That would have been a decade ago. And just what I've observed, harassment against women, especially at night in big cities, also less of an issue from what I can see in countries like Ukraine or Poland or Moldova than you're going to see definitely in Belgium, where I lived for a good few years. I lived in Brussels for 7 years. It was a major issue there, and you would see it quite frequently. So then overall, I think these stats play out pretty well, showing you that in spite of the stereotype, because at least if you're growing up in Western Europe, also spent some time in the States, the image of Central and Eastern Europe is that, like, we have Eurotrip, that film from 20 years ago, and it's playing on these stereotypes. And, it's funny because obviously they brought it to a ridiculous level. Like, no one actually believed that it was that poor or that dangerous with dogs walking around with human hands in their mouths. But it was playing on a stereotype definitely prevalent at the time 20 years ago, that Central and Eastern Europe, or New Europe as I refer to it, as more inspirational branding, was really dilapidated, dangerous, and a little bit wild and savage, almost primitive, compared to going to Amsterdam or Paris or London. And that is definitely a difference, and definitely 20 years ago there was, but nowadays it's probably the inverse in terms of petty crime or feeling of security, especially in big cities. I don't want to say that everyone in Western Europe has a crime issue or a feeling of insecurity, but in certain parts of Western Europe or old Europe, it is a growing issue. And actually here, it's less of an issue. So that might surprise you, especially if you haven't spent time in the region. I'm not sure if that is a police car on cue, that siren, or is it an ambulance? I'm not really sure. So maybe there has been a little bit of crime. Actually, today is Moldovan Independence Day, or it's actually going to be tomorrow, but they're celebrating it for 2 days. They've dragged out the weekend. It's now Monday, and they had parties Friday, Saturday, Sunday, big summer fest, and now we got Monday and Tuesday. So yeah, there will be a lot of police here in the center of the city of Chisinau to make sure there aren't too many petty crimes being committed. Maybe it's a little, an event like this might be a little bit higher, but definitely if your image of this region is that it is extremely dangerous in terms of petty crime, that just doesn't bear out either from my personal experience of being here, my friends' experience over the years, and my clients' experience, and also statistically.
SAR Experience.
So there you have an overview of the petty crime stats for New Europe versus Old Europe. And it's not just about feeling safer, which I actually do in this region overall, than in Western Europe. There are also a lot of other things that I prefer here. Like, number one, the climate, especially coming from Ireland where it rains so much, even in the summertime. Can't beat the Moldovan weather out. Biggest complaint you're going to have is it gets a bit too hot during the summer. We did have a few days over 40. I think I saw 45 on the thermometer at one point, which is a little bit too much for your Irish boy here with the pasty Irish Celtic skin. Definitely need factor 50 on to protect myself in that extreme weather, but it has a very pleasant climate, especially in summer. I know winter might not be for you, especially if you are looking for the sun all year round. You will have it definitely during the summertime in abundance, not so much in the winter time. Local food is amazing, as we've already dealt with the safety, the feeling of safety, the perception of safety is quite nice. Also, on top of it, your money goes a lot further because things in general are better value for money here. As it's still developing, the cost of living is dramatically lower than being in most parts of Western Europe or North America. Can be maybe half. So your money is going to go twice as far, so your quality of life is going to increase. And whilst there isn't a stampede of guys relocating for the entire year to Moldova, there are more and more, in particular guys. I do meet some women as well who are normally working stuff like international development. Here, we're right in the center of Chisinau in Moldova, and I believe you're American, and you have decided to spend some time here. What do you think? With summertime, it's Chisinau. How do you feel about being here?
I absolutely love being in Chisinau. I love living here. It's such an exciting city. I've never lived in a capital before, so I also love being in the center of politics, in the center of everything happening. All international organizations are here. I also find it linguistically absolutely fascinating. I've been here for about a year.
Okay, already here.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed the entire time. I both studied at the State University here, and I've worked full time, so I've also done it all already in Chisinau, and I love it. I have Moldovan friends, I have international friends, and it's been a great experience so far.
But there are a lot of guys who can manage their revenues remotely who are moving to this region in general, not just to Moldova, but can be to Poland, which is the most popular, and up into the Baltic states, places like Czechia. And they are normally single guys, not always, but mainly single guys. And also the dating market, if you're a single guy, is particularly attractive in this region as well, as women are well renowned for their beauty. You're probably aware of that. In general, it's probably no surprise to you. And yeah, obesity is not a huge thing for women or people in general under the age of, say, 35. It can be a bit different over 35, so people tend to be slim, trim, healthier, and more attractive, and that is definitely something that a lot of guys are interested in. So if you are new to this channel, to me, Conor Klein, I've been living in these parts for over a decade, and I have a few playlists that you should go check out. I'm going to put 3 of them here. First one is a series of city vlogs where I bring my clients, my in-person clients, for the kind of insider experience with me, the Czar Experience. It's a premium introduction package, and you should go and check out the playlist. I'll put up in the card down below in the description for those city vlogs. Obviously, if you think that you are a good candidate for the in-person experience, I'll have an application form also down in the description. But go and look at the city vlogs and some of my content if you're new here first before you decide whether it's a good idea to apply. It is by application only, not everybody who wants to come and live the Czar Experience with me, the insider for the region. It's not, I don't take everybody, I do screen my clients. Second playlist is going to be like a series of tutorials for dating the uber beautiful women that I just referred to. The 9s and 10s, the Olympian level of beauty. It's like a series of tutorials there. It's a whole playlist. Go and devour that so you get that free value, first of all. And then thirdly, if you really want to go deep into the mindset of people in this region, I have my Vodka Vodcast series. There's over 50 hours of content. It's probably a lot more than 50 at this point because I keep adding to it all the time. So be discerning. Don't sit down and try and watch it all in one go. You won't get up for a few days, probably, if you try to do that. So go through, scroll through those videos and pick out the ones that appeal to you, that will help you, in all likelihood, to deepen your understanding of this region. And on this beautiful, peaceful summer's evening in Chisinau, Moldova, New Europe. As you've seen a little bit in my video today, definitely not the stereotype if you go and search through YouTube about what it's like here. Very pleasant. It's not some backwater. In reality, It's been beautified to a great extent in the city center in the last few years. People in general are very welcoming. At least that's been my experience and my clients' experience here. And it is quite attractive during the summer. And if you do come to Moldova, definitely check out the wine if you drink alcohol, because they have amazing wines here. One of the best kept secrets in the region. And also down below, I have a free PDF if you want to know where to go when you come to some of the cities in this region in New Europe. I'll give you some places that will save you a lot of time trying to figure out online, where you should be going for hospitality in a city like Chisinau. So, o seară plăcută, have a pleasant evening din Chisinau, Moldova. Ciao, ciao.
SAR Experience.